Hi, this is Brett Ingram, entrepreneur and award-winning product creator. Today, I want to help answer the question, should you share your goals or keep them secret? Goal setting is sort of a very interesting topic because it gets a lot of reaction out of people. People have a tendency to feel one particular way about it or another, and it tends to be very polarizing. Now, exactly what are we talking about when we talk about goal setting? Well, what we mean is really simply thinking about something that you want to accomplish in your life, whether it's business, personal, professional, whatever, and actually committing to that as a goal. So instead of just sort of having an idea in your head, actually writing it down or actually, setting that out as a specific goal with an actual deadline or numerical values attached or whatever it is. So making it real, making it concrete. We all might have a dream here and there of something that we'd like to do someday, but that's not really a goal because that's just something that's sort of vague and it's off in the distance and in the future, and it's something that we hope we'll get to. A goal is far more concrete, it's far more real, and it's far more specific. So it's something where we're sort of putting our flag in the ground and saying, this is what I'm going to accomplish, this is what I want to be able to do. And so when we talk about goal setting and what it is, that's exactly what we mean. We mean something getting very specific about what it is that we want, trying to set like a time frame to that, and specific quantifiable results that we want to achieve. And the interesting thing about that is if you ask people about goal setting, you will generally find two completely different schools of thought, even in terms of the way people feel about it. Some people think that, goal setting is sort of one of those touchy-feely things. It's not really necessary. It's for people who are struggling. Anybody who's doing anything doesn't really need that. The other school of thought is goal setting is an inseparable part of human achievement. That if you want to achieve anything, if you want to accomplish anything, if you want to be successful, then you have to set goals and systematically knock those down. And so depending on what school of thought or what angle you come from, there is one thing about it that's undisputed. And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. The fact of the matter is goal setting is proven. The statistics show that for people that actually commit to goals, that write them down and quantify them and get specific and targeted about it and keep those goals in their mind, they have a far higher tendency to achieve them and tend to be far more successful. They've done study after study on this. They tracked college graduates from great schools, from mediocre schools, whatever, and they asked at the end of graduation what percentage had written goals. And one of the most famous studies, I don't remember all the details off the top of my head, but it was something like there was only a small percentage that had written goals. And when they fast forwarded 20 years, that percentage that had the written goals was worth, it was like 3% or something, was worth more financially than the other 97% combined. Now, to be clear and to be fair, goals aren't all about financial rewards, and financials don't always determine success. No doubt about it. You could be, ridiculously rich and be totally miserable, and that is hardly a definition of success. But in terms of things that we can quantify, and in terms of things that we can understand on a universal level, finances is an easy one. And so to say that this particular group ended up far more financially successful than all the rest of the people combined is a telling stat. And so that's a really interesting statistic, and I think it's been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that goal setting actually does work, right? The question is, how do we actually do it? Because there are different ideas about how to do it best. I actually did a quick Google search because I was really curious myself to see what the current state of thought was on this. And if you do something relative to the idea of whether you should share your goals or keep them private, you will find 50% of the results saying share them, 50% of the results saying keep them private. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it's interesting, right? Because why would half the people feel one way, the other half feel the other way, and they're all quoting studies and everything else. So it's a really fascinating sort of study in sort of human achievement and goal setting and psychology, which is why I wanted to shoot this episode, because I feel like there's some real value here. So the one school of thought about goal setting, now that we've got over the hump with the fact that we have to set them, is maybe it's better to share them, right? If we share our goals, then we're more likely to achieve them. The other school of thought is no, you don't ever make it public. You keep it private, because then you're a lot more apt to achieve your goals, and the odds that you're going to achieve it go way up. So if we look at one and then the other, the theory of sharing your goals. So why would you share a goal? If you set out a goal and it's your personal thing, why would you share it? Well, one of the reasons that you would share it is for accountability, right? The minute that you tell somebody, oh, this is the particular goal that I want to achieve, it then sort of becomes more real, right? I mean, at that point, you've soft committed, if you want to use that word, to somebody else by telling them that you are going to achieve this. So when you do that, the theory is that it makes you feel more accountable. Now you feel responsible for that goal. Whereas if you keep it private, no one will ever know. If you don't achieve it, who cares, right? No one's ever going to know about that. So the other reason that we would share it is for external motivation, right? If we're sharing it with someone who we're close to, and we value their friendship and everything else, and they're they value us, most likely they're going to try to encourage us, right? They're going to say, "Oh, well, that's great. You know what I mean? Go for it. Like I think you can do it. I know you. I know your work ethic. I know how bright you are, and how talented you are, and blah 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 blah. So go ahead and do it." And that can be a great source of external motivation. It can make us feel really good about it, and it can sort of give us that extra push that we need. Whereas if we keep it private, we're sort of on our own, and we have to create our own motivation. We don't have anybody pushing us or helping us or anything like that. The other thing is, when we share it, we can get help and guidance, right? I mean, if we're trying to accomplish something we've never done before, particularly if it's in an area that we don't have a lot of experience with, and somebody else might be able to give us good third-party advice, right? Sometimes, even if they're not involved, even if they don't have any more experience in it than we do, sometimes just an extra set of eyes, an extra set of ears, another mind thinking about or working on a problem or trying to, reach a goal is a great way to be able to get breakthroughs, find little distinctions that might help us get closer to where we want to be, right? So being able to share all of our goals, right, is going to be able to do all of those things for us potentially, because we're going to be able to get guidance. Yet, the interesting thing about it is, if you look at the statistics for that, many people who share their goals don't actually achieve them. So, if I share my goals and all of these effects happen, then why wouldn't, we achieve them? When I was in an earlier business, one of the things that we were at a conference, and I was a young guy at the time, and I was sort of naive, but I was super motivated, and I was super ambitious, and I was somebody who, always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And we were in sort of a roll your own business where you grow it yourself and you're able to build it. And, one of the things that they do at one of these conferences is they celebrate all the high achievers. Well, I was relatively new to it, so I hadn't achieved a lot yet. I had started and I was going okay, but some of the people were being called up on stage and they were super successful. And then after that, we had a dinner, and everybody's at dinner, and we're all sitting at our tables. And I remember I think I had had a couple of drinks. I was feeling pretty good, and I was really motivated by the whole environment, by being around all these people that had achieved so much, and there was so much positive energy in the room that I got really excited. And I started going around to the tables and was putting my arms around some of the people that I had met, and I'm saying, "Hey, I got to tell you, I'm going to be the next person. Next year, I'm going to be the one up on that stage." And, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome. Go for it, go for it." And so I started to feel good. And so I started to tell more and more people. And I started to tell them like, oh, these are all the things that I'm going to accomplish, and wait until you see what I'm going to do, and it's going to be amazing. And whether or not they believed me or they thought I was nuts, they were gracious enough to be nice to me and to be encouraging to me. And that was really great. Fast forward a year, I wasn't the guy standing on stage next year. In fact, I didn't even go to the conference the following year. I was still sort of struggling in mediocrity in what I was doing, and I had never really achieved much at all. And I actually, at that point, felt embarrassed. I didn't want to go to the next meeting or the next conference because I didn't want to show my face. I had told all these people what I was going to accomplish. I felt great at the time. And then I ultimately, when I got back home, I didn't really do the work. And it's so unlike me because I am hardworking. I don't tend to make a lot of promises I can't keep. And I certainly don't like to make bold claims if I don't think I can back them up. So I felt particularly embarrassed about it, but I give myself a little bit of a mulligan because I was young and I was a little naive, and I thought in the moment I was swept up with it, right? So the upshot there is just that, sharing can work in some cases, and in other cases it doesn't. Just because you share your goals doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to come to fruition, right? There's some psychology to it that will, there's some psychology to it that won't. So an interesting thing that sort of explains a little bit about my failure to reach my goals was actually given a TED Talk in, I think it was 2010. There was a guy, I think his name is Derek Sivers, and he is an entrepreneur, and he gave a TED Talk. And the TED Talk went viral because of the controversial nature of what he said. Everybody up until that point believed that in general, the common wisdom was you share your goals, that gives you accountability, it gives you support, boom, you're off to the races, you're going to achieve them. He got up on the stage and he said, we should keep our goals to ourselves. He showed a picture of, I think it was like a treadmill, and it had all these clothes stocked on it, and obviously hadn't been used in a long time. And he said, have you shared a goal and, you felt really good about that and all this other stuff? And he's like, well, I got bad news for you. You're not going to achieve it. Now, might be a simplification, but this was his way of presenting it. And he said, we need to keep our goals to ourselves. We need to keep them private. And he cited psychology research. He also had looked into some psychological research, and he said that quite the contrary to what conventional wisdom thought at the time, when you share your goals with others, it makes you feel less motivated to do the actual hard work necessary to achieve them. And, he said that basically what happens is, you get yourself in a situation where you can now envision the results and you get the feeling of having already accomplished it by sharing it, right? Which actually reduces your motivation to do the hard work. And if you look at my example, if you look at what I did, that's precisely what happened to me. I went in and I was sharing this, and everybody was patting me on the back and telling me what a great thing that was. And I was feeling great about it. But it wasn't motivating me. It was just making me feel good, like I had accomplished something, when all I did was run my mouth. I didn't accomplish anything except talk. And so in that particular case, I think the study that he was relating to and his point in my particular situation for that, that particular goal makes a lot of sense, right? Because it actually reduced my motivation. When I got back home, I wasn't crushing it. I was sort of, whatever. And then as I got closer and closer and closer to the next conference, I started to get more and more stressed because I wasn't anywhere near the goals that I claimed I was going to hit. And so I started to feel actually really bad about it. And so it can actually reduce the motivation to do the hard work. And when he said it, it was really controversial. But, there may be some truth to it for sure. Because again, if you look at nothing beyond my own personal experience, you can see that there's a manifestation of it. So if you think back in your own life and you think back to all the times that you've made, promises to people or told people about what you were going to accomplish or do or whatever, you need to ask yourself, you need to do your own soul searching and say, did that help me? Did I actually reach those goals? Or did that demotivate me and make me feel great for a few minutes? And then after the fact, I was sort of like, whatever, that's the really scary part about it. But it actually goes even beyond that. Because another reason for sharing goals that, or a couple of other reasons that sharing goals can be negative, is that when we share our goals, we can also create extra pressure, right? Once we've said to somebody, hey, this is what we're going to do, then what happens is now we feel the pressure to do it. When we keep it to ourselves, if we don't accomplish it, no one's ever going to know. But this person is going to feel or see us in a different light if now we don't accomplish that goal because we said we were going to do it. So we have that extra pressure, which again, sometimes can be motivating, sometimes it can be debilitating. So it depends on your personality and it depends on how you react to that kind of thing. It can also create the fear of public failure, right? So for me, I wasn't afraid of failure in the moment, and I wasn't afraid of failure when I was home alone, supposedly building my business in the background. But I sure had fear of embarrassment and failure if I went back to the conference again. And everyone's like, hey, I thought you were going to be up on stage, but you're not. So there was fear of failure there. There was fear of rejection and humiliation. And there can also be misunderstandings. People can misinterpret what you're saying and then expect you to do things that you never said you were going to do. And that can create some negative emotions. And the worst part is you can actually get negative feedback and discouragement. I don't know if you've ever been in this particular scenario, but I've had some goals in my life where I felt really strongly about it. And I had sort of an epiphany. And I came to a place where I said, I'm so committed to this. And I know myself and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to make this happen. And in my excitement, in the heat of the moment, I made the mistake of sharing it with somebody. And they didn't necessarily discourage me or say anything, but I could tell by the look on their face that sort of they didn't believe me. It was sort of a look of disbelief or disapproval. It was sort of a look of, yeah, sure you are. And what it did to me is it absolutely sapped my energy. And it made me feel terrible about the fact that I shared the goal. It made me feel embarrassed about the fact that I set the goal. And it made me rethink the whole thing. And the second that I said it, I wished I didn't. I wished there was a way I could go back and keep it private and not share it. Because you can get that disapproval from people even when they're trying to be nice. If they don't believe you can achieve it, or some people are just negative in nature and they're downers. And so if you share anything lofty with them, if they haven't accomplished anything in their life, they don't feel good about their lives, the last thing they want to do is say, hey, stand on my shoulders and let me know what it looks like from up there. They want to pull you down. They don't want you to achieve anything either. And it might not be conscious for them. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying they might be in a dark place, so it's hard for them to be able to be encouraging. Even if they try, and even if they say the right things, you can feel their energy that they're like, yeah, you're never going to do this. And that can be really sapping and draining on your energy and make you feel terrible. I know it did for me. So the question becomes, which is it? Should we share our goals or should we not share our goals? Well, according to research done at Ohio State University, they did some groundbreaking studies. And what they determined is that both sharing goals and keeping them private can work depending on the circumstances. So they did a few studies, and among them, one was a scenario in which they had undergraduate college students, and they were given a very basic computer task. It was like drag this little bar across the screen, and they let them test it out and everything else. And then they had them set a goal. So they had to move that slider across the screen as many times as they could over a period of time. From there, they were told to set a goal of the number of times that they'd be able to complete the task on the next round. Then what they did is the researchers, the people running the study, sent a lab assistant around to review their work. And the lab assistants said they were in one of two groups. Half of them said, I'm a doctoral level student, right? So I'm somebody who's, really accomplished and I'm going to be successful. Others said they were a student employee at a community college. So half the people were going to be doctoral level students. The other ones were part-time employees, right, at a community college. When the study participants shared their target goal with the so-called doctoral level student, they were more likely to reach their goal. On the flip side, when they shared their goals with the individual that they thought was a community college student, they didn't perform any better. And in addition to that, the group who didn't tell their goal to anyone also didn't perform any better. So in that case, keeping the goals private didn't work either. So some reached their goals by telling others and some didn't. And those who didn't share their goals also didn't reach their goals. So exactly what happened here and what's the upshot? Well, Professor Howard Klein, who was the lead author and the professor of management and human resources at Ohio State, at the Fisher College of Business there, he summed it up this way, quote, if you don't care about the opinion of whom you tell, it doesn't affect your desire to persist, which is really what goal commitment is all about. You want to be dedicated and unwilling to give up on your goal, which is more likely when you share that goal with someone you look up to, unquote, right? So basically, the deal is this. It's not about whether we share it or not. It's if we're going to share our goals, it's best to do so with someone that we respect and whose opinion matters to us. Because when we do that, we feel accountable to it. And we want to make them happy and make them feel good about us. Otherwise, it might just be best to keep them secret because we aren't going to care, and in fact, it might be demotivating. So the takeaway here is that goal setting has a proven positive impact on human performance and achievement, no doubt. But there's been a lot of debate about how to actually set goals and whether we should share them with others or keep them private. Based on research, it seems that sharing our goals with people we look up to and respect has the greatest chance of helping us reach them. But in the end, it is a personal decision, and we should all do what works best for us as individuals.